Hey, welcome to Leverage CEO. In this video, we're going to talk about how you can grow your online business with more leverage. So we're going to talk about ad strategy and things that people need to grow and what's working well right now. But more importantly, we're going to talk about how can you grow your business so it creates more leverage to have more time freedom, location freedom, income scalability, growing, but also income stability. Because when we have an online company that's information-based, coaching, whatever it may be, we have two outcomes, right? Are we going to go to a spot where we are acquired, or are we going to grow it for a while, run it, squeak out as much profit and income as we possibly can, and have a great lifestyle along the way? Because most online coaching companies are not going to lead to acquisition. Alex Hormozi got acquired not because of Gym Launch's revenue, but because he had a proprietary AI booking software and a supplement company that was attached to Gym Launch that created stable MRR. Things that people who invest in purchase companies look for. And so if we are not going to do that, which maybe you will, awesome. But if you're not, right, we want to ensure that we are getting everything out of an online business that makes it sexy in the first place, right? I wanted to start our online fitness company because I wanted to be able to live anywhere, do the activities I love, have a high earning potential, higher than I would if I was an in-person coach, but also be able to at some point create stability. But when I only focused on scaling, I got stuck in what I call the dreaded cash loop. And I've seen other people in my inner circle, like myself, who only thought if I could just grow more, scale, and just keep putting fire and gasoline onto what I'm already doing, right? People who are doing 500, 700K per month get stuck in what I call the dreaded cash loop. And so what that is we start out, maybe we have our first 10, 20K month, which is awesome. Maybe it's more money than we've ever made in a single month. So we're doing all the jobs that we're doing, content, sales, fulfillment. So we think we need to hire more help. So we do, we hire help, but then we need more leads to be able to pay the help. And now since we have more leads, we need to grow our sales team larger to be able to manage all the leads. And here's the reality is that Jeff Bezos has talked about extensively that he will never invest or start a company that only grows with more units of people. So if we have linear growth that is reliant upon linear growth of a team, that is a very low leverage, high risk business that also comes with a lot of stress. And I've seen people, like I said, doing 500, 700K per month have a bad quarter, a bad half a year, and now their revenue's cut in half, and they're deciding, do I cut a lot of people on my team, lose this momentum, and then if I want to grow again, I have to rehire new people and get stuck in this process, right? And I want to help you avoid that. And so in this, we're going to talk about how you should grow a business, online business with leverage. But let's first talk about how not to do. So here's how you grow a low leverage, high headache business. You have a copy and paste revenue model, identical offers that make you a commodity and other people can easily duplicate and saturate your market. You think scaling is strategy or the only strategy there is. You hire off a feel and you funnel hop. Versus how you create a high leverage fun online business is you create a unique and congruent brand identity. So think Apple, right? From ad to store to purchase to having the product, everything is sleek, high quality, high production, high value. Versus if they switch to user generated content like people sell, beauty products with on TikTok, right? That would lose the brand identity congruency, right? We need to have an affluent market offer. So we're going to talk about you could be doing everything you possibly could inside an ads manager, but if your avatar, the market that you're going after isn't affluent, you're not going to have a plethora of qualified leads. We also want to scale based on projections. We also want to hire correctly. So are they hire based on financial models, and are they a cultural fit? And we'll talk about that in a second. And then creating what I call off-platform selling assets that are going to allow us to be able to sell our product no matter what platform people are on at that time or what ads manager is doing. We don't want to have a funnel that is reliant upon the platform. And so who am I? My name is Gary Dubs. Me and my wife, over the past 2 years inside our online fitness company, she's the face of it. We've done 2.3 million in revenue from 375K of ad spend. That's like a 6.5 something return on ad spend. If you want to know, I completely worked myself out of the business, and I've helped other coaches optimize their high ticket and direct sales campaigns to buy back their freedom. And so first off is we want to create predictable revenue, right? So to do that, we need profitable ads, and ads manager optimization. So if we're going to create profitable ads, we first have to have an affluent market offer. This is king. No matter what we do inside Ads Manager, if we don't have an affluent market that we're going after, right, meaning sell to people who already have money, right, we are not going to get qualified leads. So if the quality of leads never exists in the first place, we will never have a pipeline full of quality leads with ample cash to buy. So an example of this would be, let's say I have the best program in the world to get the most addicted drug users in the world, heroin addicts, off of drugs. Well, no matter what I do inside Ads Manager, I'm not going to get a bunch of people who can afford my product, right? It's an extreme example, but the same thing applies to how we create a lead magnet, who we're speaking to, right? If it's not something that an affluent market wants, desires, or needs, we are not going to be able to optimize our Ads Manager to be able to have a pipeline filled with just amazing, fantastic leads that have the cash to purchase our product, right? So next to that, though, is we need to have a buyer type inside that affluent market that has the purchasing behavior of buying our type of product. So, there's people who are very affluent who won't buy, a $6 cup from Starbucks, but they'll spend more per month on their poodle than they do on themselves, right? And so an example of this would be, let's say I were starting a supplement company, right? Would it be easier for me to sell my supplements to somebody who's maybe blue collar, who doesn't really purchase supplements or invest in themselves? Or would it be easier to sell to, CrossFitters, high rocks athletes, power lifters who already have a habit of purchasing supplements, right? The friction to get that person to buy my product is going to be much lower because they have that interest, that purchasing behavior for that type of product. So if I know they have the money and they have the purchasing behavior, now I can start focusing on how to optimize my lead. But bringing it back to having that unique brand identity and congruency across our content, our social media, our page, our selling process is key, right? So there's this guy, John Madsen, who simply says, if you make 100K or more per year, I'll help you get a six-pack, right? And so, yes, that's one part of calling out that person to get better leads inside of your pipeline. But if your page looks like crap, if your social media content doesn't speak that kind of higher quality that somebody who has higher disposable income is going to want, right? You are not going to win versus, let's say, him, right? And so we have to be thinking when we're talking about growing with leverage, there's more than just growing and finding a funnel strategy, ad strategy. It's about how across the board is my business moving, right? This is the thing that Steve Jobs was great at, creating that unique brand identity, simplicity, and elegance in one from every point of contact you ever have with the business. And so inversely though, let's say we were a skate shop or a skate brand. If we didn't have that kind of grunge feeling of Vans or whatever it may be, and we try to go with the Apple type of pristine, sleek feel, we are not going to get that avatar who's going to want to purchase our product, right? So we have to match our brand identity with that type of person, right? So it's not just about wanting better leads and saying, some pre-qualifier. We also have to ensure, are we putting out the same type of brand identity that those people are going to want, right? So if you do not have an affluent the affluent market vibes, right, across your platform, everything, you will lose to your competition who does. So that's number one, is we have to have an affluent market offer. No matter what you do with ads, your ad strategy, you're going to lose to your competition who can do this, right? So now if we have that, then we can talk about optimizing lead quality. So everyone wants more leads, but we also want quality leads. And so to do that, we have to first understand that no matter what ad strategy we run, Meta will always prioritize getting us the leads as cheap as they possibly can, right? And so what we do is we do something like a lead form or a website questionnaire that adds friction to somebody becoming a lead, right? Qualifies them a little bit more. It's going to increase our lead costs, but if we have lower flow and higher quality leads coming in, that isn't a bad problem. And now what happens is Meta says, okay, this is what you've deemed as a qualified lead that you want. I'm going to go and find more people that look like this versus just find anyone who's going to click in as cheaply as possible. So we need to be training and understanding how can we, more than just what we say in our ads and obviously what we do with our brand identity, but then from there, how can we be training the platform and ads manager to go and find more of the people that we want, right? And so for us, right, we did a simple question on one of our lead forms. Are you potentially looking to hire a coach? Yes, I may hire the right coach. No, I'm not looking for a coach. So if they click no, they're automatically kicked out. They don't become a lead. Those who say yes, now Meta can say like, okay, now I see more of the people. And then we did some more iterations of this, 3 or 4 questions, and we refined it further to a point where we got our lead cost from $4 to $25. But what you'll see here in a week is our cost per call average was $109, right? Or yeah, cost per call average was $109. And so if we have $25 leads, that means 1 out of 4 leads are essentially booking a call. And you'll see here the way that we set it up to create more leverage is that we had most of our calls booking from the page, not booking from a setter. And so you'll see here total calls booked 26. 8 of them were booked by the setter. That means that 18 of them were booked by a page. So we could grow our call volume and sales volume without needing more setters, right? And then you'll see our cost per acquisition was $713, $583, $923. So that changes, but we eventually get to an average. And we'll talk about how to move those levers, what we did to improve the cost per acquisition, and how to increase our total revenue from these. And so optimizing lead quality, right? Now, if we're putting that in front of there, now I could put in, we would put up ads, right? That would say, hey, you know, I have 5 spots open, whatever it may be. But what we did is that we created a pool of an audience who had more trust, more goodwill with us from opting in for our podcast VSL series. That's essentially what it was, right? And then we would hit them with the more direct offer ads, right? So the more trust, goodwill, and relationship we have, the higher the lead conversions and sales conversions become. And so Alex Becker talked about this with Alex Hormozi in one of his live launches. They had a question, you know, what's the number one thing you can do to increase your return on ad spend? And he said, by far, the number one thing you can have is more established trust and goodwill with potential customers before they ever see your ad, which is why Alex Hormozi's ads convert better than anyone else's, right? And so think of it like this. Would you be more likely to buy from Serena Williams from a cold ad or from some tennis coach you don't know, right? The answer is obviously Serena Williams, because you know Serena Williams and her rapport and her accomplishments prior to ever being shown that ad, right? And so if we now know those things, we need an affluent market offer. We need a buyer type that has the purchasing behavior for our type of product. We know that we need to understand that Meta is going to serve us as cheap of leads as possible, and we need to train the algorithm for that, and we also need to create more goodwill. Then instead of funnel hopping, all we need to focus on is optimizing our ads manager for what Meta wants. And they have told us right now, this is what is working best, right? Dynamic ads, so a lot of different ad creatives, letting the platform figure out which one's best to serve them at a specific time. Auto advanced matching, so making sure you have not only your pixel on your pages, but also having your API on there so they can see who's becoming a lead, and we'll talk about that in a second. We want account simplification. If you're doing top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, you're overcomplicating your ad strategy. That is not going to be able to scale once you get to a higher ad spend. And then CBO and automatic placement. So all that to say is, instead of just focusing on what's the next funnel, if you focus on what Meta wants, you're never going to want to funnel hop ever again, because you're going to know that I am doing something that might not be what Meta is spending billions of dollars on to optimize on their platform. I need to be congruent with what Meta is doing. And so for us, the lead engine, right, is we want to put out ads that are going after people who are looking to purchase this type of product now. There's always a very small part of the market that is willing to purchase and they have determined that they're going to buy this type of product right now, and they're just going to find the best fit, right? But we also, alongside of that, want to be creating a small pool of non-now buyers who are now becoming problem, solution, and product aware and building that trust and rapport with our brand prior. And then lastly, we want to retarget all of them with social proof. And so Now, right, that's how we create the predictable revenue, but now we want to grow with leverage. So we need to grow with systems, not human capital, and we need to eliminate the volatility. So how do we do that? And so, right, so let's talk about what a low leverage 100K month looks like. So we see here, and we'll talk more about this financial projection calculator at the end, but let's say my goal was to hit 100K in monthly revenue. All right. My cost per acquisition is $850, and my product price point is $2,800, and my re-sign rate is 20%. And let's say sales team commissions 15, coaching expense percentage is 20% of revenue. Let's say if you're like a fitness company, right? All that and other expenses, and there's taxes in here, and some people have other expenses that might not be in here. We're looking at 26% profit margin, right? And then as we scale up to 500, 700, beyond, that's going to decrease, right? And so you'll see here, $30,000 in profit, but it sounds great, but we have $88,000 in monthly expenses, right? So we are leveraged at a very high amount for our expenses. If we have a couple down months and we eat all our profit, we're not making money, or we're eating into profit that we had in the past. And those of us, right, most of us are people who have families, we have bills that we need to pay, and we want to not feel that we always have to be ahead of the 8 ball, that we're always having to sell 24/7 to just slightly stay ahead of expenses, right? Now, let's talk about, instead of just what most people focus on, increasing ad spend, growing, not necessarily looking at how can we create more leverage. Let's say I wanted to grow with more leverage, right? So I wanted to hit 100K a month, but instead of just, increasing ad spend, so you'll see here this previous month, if we're running these numbers, ad spend's 30,000. Let's just focus on getting our cost per acquisition down by $350 per month. And let's say we increased our product price point from $2,800 to $4,000. And let's say we also did a big push on getting more client re-signs and increased that to 35%. Now we are looking at 45% profit margin, and we are essentially almost to a 1-to-1 ratio of profit to expenses, right? This is how you can create more breathing room. This is how you can look at your numbers and focus on different ways of growing that create more leverage, like a Steve Jobs would, right? And when they're going bankrupt, for them, they're looking, how do we just get this top line? We're not focusing on all our SKUs and all the amount of hundreds of products that we have that aren't selling well, right? Instead of him saying, hey, let's just keep growing what we're doing, he took a step back, simplified, and said, what if we pulled some of these other levers to get us out of this hole and create a more financially sound business, right? And so that is how we have to be thinking, especially when we are, if you're a 20-something online coach and you don't have much responsibility, sure, just focus on grow. But once you get to a spot, you have family, you have a house, you have bills to pay, and you want income to come in consistently and not be freaking out about sales, you have to be looking at more ways to create leverage. And so now, let's say that top funnel, right, which is a growth funnel. So ideas, you're getting people sold on your ideas, meaning like lead magnets or, different opt-ins that you have. Essentially, you're allowing people to come into your atmosphere for free, right? They're getting, that's also maybe another name would be a hero's journey funnel. It's lead. We nurture, we get to a sale. That is the best way to get to 100K per month to start. And I'll talk about, I'll show proof of this concept here in a second. Now, instead of just growing the same way, right, which again becomes this labor intensive, it only grows with more people. When we get to this, 100K month, we've created a large profit margin. We have a lot of cash flow. Now we want to create a leverage funnel, something that's going to take some cash flow to test and iterate, but allows us to cut down on our cost per lead acquisition. Right? So leverage funnel would mean, instead of coming in for an idea, or you as the hero's journey, your values, your beliefs, identity, they purchase info on the front end, right? Now they purchase, we nurture, and we get to our high ticket sale, right? This is how we create a two-legged stool that is much more stable and allows us to not have to feel like we can never take a day off. And to prove my point, right? We all know Alex Hormozi. He does the free content, the idea, right? The growth funnel, let people come in for free. But what does he also do? He does his $100 million offer books that people are purchasing on the front end. He still nurtures, and he gets all of them to come to their, weekend event at acquisition.com, right? And so For us, we got to that point where it was like, okay, are we going to keep growing this way to this ivory tower where we have multiple heads of department and we're just growing and it's more people, and naturally as the system grows, it becomes less efficient? Or can we focus on increasing growth with more leverage and not necessarily more people? So it started with the lead form, then it started going to a purchase information on the front end, and that allowed us to create much more stability and leverage inside our business. Now, all this is said, and what most people give you is strategy, right? Here's strategy, information, go to my course, watch this, hopefully you figure out the right thing for you, versus focusing on signal versus noise, right? And so what we do is we do a one-on-one strategic planning where we get to focus on the signal for your specific company. Not everyone needs to be doing everything at all times and only focusing on growth as their highest lever to pull to gain more leverage, right? And so Steve Jobs didn't win because he did more. He won because he ignored more, right? When Jobs came back to Apple, they had 350 products. He cut it down to 4, 2 laptops, 2 desktops, right? And so noise is everything that feels productive but steals your leverage. So noise for Apple at the time would be, how do we just get back in the black and get out of the spot where we're headed towards bankruptcy? Let's just grow. The noise is just grow, scale everything, and we have all these different departments, versus what if we simplified, focus on our core competencies, and just found out where we can pull the levers on these core competencies to grow with more leverage, right? And so signal is what actually compounds your business. And compounding your business online, again, is something that gives you the time freedom, location freedom, grows your income capacity, earning capacity, but also creates stability, right? That is what's going to compound your business that you're going to love running. You're going to feel great. You're going to have all of those things that make an online business sexy and not have the stress and be strapped to this idea of growth, because nobody tells you where you're actually growing towards, right? You're not growing towards acquisition. Do you really want to have, a 30, 40, 50 person team where you have to be on stand-ups every single day and you always have to be hiring and firing new people, right? So why is this important to you, the signal versus noise, right? Every Fortune 500 CEO has a board and executive team whose job is to pressure test decisions, identify blind spots, and separate signal from noise. And as a founder, by default, you don't have that, right? But inside Leverage CEO, you do. And so what we do, versus maybe you've been in another coaching program where you're just on group calls and a group chat, is we have weekly one-on-one signal sessions. So 20 minutes, we dive into your business and what are going to be the 2 to 3 highest leverage actions we can take right now based on financial projections, not just feelings, and execute at a very high level. Next, we have weekly business strategy and operations calls. So we combine that, right, with your one-on-one focus, your signal sessions of your business, with weekly business strategy op group calls where we're talking about what's working well, what are we seeing happening in the online atmosphere, but we keep you from getting shiny object syndrome, where you hear this new strategy and you're like, well, I need to implement that and a piece of that and a piece of this. And the next thing you know, you're like, this is one big convoluted mess and it's overly complicated and I've lost all the things that give me leverage, right? We also have cohort and community Slack channels. So what we do is we put you in a group of a small cohort of people who are either in a similar industry or same growth phase, so you can pull and gain what I call, or what is called, peer network effect, right? So not only are we working on you directly in your business, but you're also seeing what's working well for other people. They're also giving your input and your growth strategies and what you could be tweaking here or there. So you are getting that peer network effect. You're growing in proximity with others who are going through the same things, so you can all strategize together to find the best solution for each of you. And so I encourage you, if you want to grow your business with more leverage, book a strategy demo below. And what I will do is I'm going to send you a copy of my profitability calculator, that little spreadsheet where you saw the numbers. You're going to plug your numbers in and then bring them to a call so we can talk about how you can actually grow with more leverage, versus just come in, buy a funnel, try to implement it, find the spot that works for you, or find the thing that is going to grow your business. And we actually look at where is the biggest hole in your business, and let's focus on that highest order of priority first so we can build stability and then focus on growth, but ensuring that we're growing with more time and location freedom. So hopefully you enjoy this. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully you can see how to grow your business with more leverage. That is the key, because if we lose the time, location, the freedom location, the profit's super volatile, right? You have sleepless nights, you don't have the stability, and you don't have the income earning potential that you want, you are losing the things that make an online business enjoyable. See you later. Peace. So hopefully I'll see you on the inside. If not, either way, I hope this helped, and I hope your business crushes.